Hello, welcome to RC Video Reviews. This is part 2 of a 3-part series on configuring RotorFlight with the Nexus flybarless and EdgeTX. So I wanted to let you guys know before we get into the content that this video is sponsored by Radiomaster, and the reason it's sponsored by Radiomaster is because they have graciously offered to supply some giveaways. So we're going to do some giveaways. And I'm going to cover that right now. Let's get into the giveaways right now so everyone understands what to do. And we're going to be giving away 3, not just 1, but 3 Nexus flybarless controllers and RP3-H receivers. So they're going match sets. Now, let's get into the rules right away. I just want to cover the rules and make sure everyone has an understanding of what's going on here. The rules are very simple. You have to send, after this video is over, send an email to john@rcvideoreviews.com with "Gimme the Nexus" in the subject, something to that event, so I know that it's not just some random email, okay? So say something about "Gimme the Nexus" in the subject field. And that'll also help me pick winners using my software, okay? So "Gimme the Nexus" in the subject field. Now, what I'll do with that information is I will pick 3 random winners by software on June 5th at midnight is the cutoff. June 5th, midnight in 2024, that's the cutoff. And after that, I'll pick from the winners or the people the submissions that I have using software to pick a random name. After I pick the names, I will respond to those emails and say, "You won, congratulations. I will need your name, address, and phone number." You do not need to provide that information during your initial submission. So don't send me that information initially. Just hold on to it and wait until I notify you that you've won. And once I've notified you that you won, you'll need to reply back to me with your name, address, and phone number, and we need that for shipping. That's a request from Radiomaster, not from me. Radiomaster needs that information in order to ship it, and you'll send that to john@rcvideoreviews.com within 24 hours. If you don't supply that information within 24 hours, then I will pick another winner and you forfeit. That's the rules. Love it or leave it. Those are the rules. Number 4, the products will be shipped by Radiomaster directly. So the winner, you will not pay for shipping. You don't pay for anything in order to get the prize, except if your country imposes VAT, taxes, import duties, or anything like that. Radiomaster does not cover those. You, as the winner, are responsible for any VAT, taxes, import duties, or other fees associated with the shipping outside of the shipping cost itself, okay? Radiomaster will pay for the shipping. And finally, this is not available in Russia, Ukraine, or Turkey. Okay, so those are the rules for the giveaway. Good luck. I hope everybody gets into it, and best of luck. I hope you win. So thanks to Radiomaster for sponsoring the video and supplying those giveaways. Very awesome of them to do. I mean, it's really cool, and it's a very cool setup. So that's out of the way. I wanted to let you know we have 2 things that we're going to cover today. All right. First thing we're going to cover is my EdgeTX setup on the radio. We're going to get into that in just a moment. And then I'm going to show you in RotorFlight Configurator how that works. And I also want to point just above there, you see a video. That is this setup minus some refinements I've made since then. Nothing functional related to the aircraft itself, other than one error that I caught related to my yaw PID. But other than that, this radio configuration is what you see flying that helicopter right there. A couple of, add-ons with voice prompts and stuff like that. Nothing operationally meaningful. And the second thing I'll say is that we are going to have this will be 2 parts. So the first part will cover the EdgeTX video and RotorFlight, and then there's going to be an after party. And the reason I'm going to do an after party is because a lot of people are like, just show me how to configure RotorFlight and I'll do the rest myself. I'm going to do an after party that shows you some of the advanced things that I did on my setup. Okay, so you don't have to stay for that if you just want to learn how to set up RotorFlight, but if you want to see some of the extra tricks and features that I use on my setup, we'll do that in the after party. Okay, so with that said, and then finally, I will also make this EdgeTX configuration and that RotorFlight configuration available as a self-contained zip file, including my diff-all, my images, my sound files, and my EdgeTX configuration in one tidy little zip file in the RotorFlight channel, pinned to the RotorFlight channel on my Discord, okay? So there you go. That's it in a nutshell. Let's get down to business. I'm going to switch over to this camera. We're going to hide the rules, and we're going to zoom in a little bit. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to walk you through the configuration on the radio really fast, and then I will show you how it operates RotorFlight. Okay, so we'll just go through the radio configuration first, then I'll go back to that other screen, and I'll show you how things work in RotorFlight, okay? So we'll start out with the inputs. Very simple input screen. All I've got for inputs, A, E, T, R, and frankly, this is one of those use cases where you could probably not use inputs at all if you wanted to. And the reason I say that is because I handle all of my rates and expos inside RotorFlight, meaning I don't use inputs to give me additional rates or expo. I also want to say, guys, that there's a lot of different ways to do things on EdgeTX and in RotorFlight. Your mileage may vary. This works for me, and it flew my helicopter, okay? I just want to say that before we get going. Okay, so there are my inputs. There are no others. AETR, that's it. And again, you could probably do without those if you wanted just to put your sticks in your mixer, because again, we're not using any rates here at all. So it's not really necessary to even use inputs. Okay. The next thing I did was I set up my mixes. This is the really important part. And I'm just going to walk through them. We'll slide down the list and I'll explain what's going on with each. So channel 1, that uses the input aileron, and that's the roll axis. Channel number 2 is elevator, and that's the pitch axis. Channel number 3 is throttle, and that's, or sorry, it's the throttle stick is the input. Yeah, so let's be clear. This is the input. It's the throttle stick. And the channel 3 is the collective pitch. What that does is raise and lower the swash plate collectively. Okay, that's the collective pitch lever. Okay, number 4 is yaw, and you can see all the weights for these are all 100%, 100, 100, 100. We do all the control inside RotorFlight. Okay, so there's 100% for yaw. And then on channel 5, we have our arming. Remember, this is Express LRS. And I also show you on channel 5, in my case, the way I like to do things. Channel 5 is an output is inverted. So you can see right there on my outputs, it's inverted. And that gives me the arm switch when I'm away. So SH away, that's armed, okay? On my radio. Again, you may have a different view on how that should work. That's how I want things on my radio. Okay, so that's channel 5. And then channel 6, we're going to cover this one in a little bit of detail. I'm going to open it up and edit and show you the edit. But on channel 6, you notice we have 100%. SA is the switch that controls channel 6, and that is my idle up, and that applies a curve called IU. The curve is IU. I'm going to show you that in just a minute. Channel 7 are my rates, and that is controlled by the SB switch. That's why it's kind of weird. I know if you're used to flying fixed wing, we normally do our inputs or our rates on the input screen. But in this case, we control our rates in RotorFlight, not on the radio. So the radio just tells RotorFlight, hey, change my rates. Okay, so SB switch, 100% rates, and that is this guy right here. So on my radio, that's how I want it. I want the SB switch to be in my rates. And then on channel 8, I've got rescue. Again, I have a little mod on my radio. On the right-hand side, my SH switch is a 2-position switch. On yours, out of the box, that's probably a momentary switch. I switched mine. I switched this one and this one. And then over here, SF is my rescue switch. That is now a momentary switch. See how that just springs back? That's a momentary. So SF is my momentary switch, and that's where I use rescue. So if I'm flying around and I have a problem, I hit that switch and it goes into rescue mode. And then the last one I want to show you, SA, is on channel 9, and that's my profile. And if you're watching closely, you might say, hey, wait a minute, he's got SA on his other one to idle up, right? On channel 6, and that's correct. The difference is on channel 6, the output of SA is governed by a curve, idle up. On channel 9, it is not governed by a curve, and it goes out. This switch position goes out on channel 9 and channel 6. So if we look at our monitor right here and I switch pages, you can see channel 9, that's SA. I'm going to move the SA switch right here. Let's see if I can get that in frame for you. There we go. So look at channel 9. I'm going to move that up to the middle position, that 0. All the way up is 2012, and then all the way down is 988. See? 988, 0, and 2012. Okay, so that's channel 9, and if I go back to channel 6 now, and you look at it, when I move my switch, this is in the down position right now. I'm going to move it to the mid position. That goes all the way to 100. That's the curve. And then when I put it in the up position, it's also at 100. That's the curve. Okay, so we'll cover this. Let's cover that right now. It's time to get into the curve and explain that in a little bit of detail. So on channel 6, I'm going to show you my curve. And what I'm doing, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit because I want you to see the switch position. Now, what I'm doing in my curve is you're going to say, well, hold on a second. If SA is the throttle switch, why does it only have 2 positions? I effectively have turned SA into effectively a 2-position output. So right now, the way it works on RotorFlight, in order to arm RotorFlight, your throttle has to be 9. There's a configuration option. It has to be something like 990 or less. Okay, so in my case, that's 988. So that is less. That allows me to arm. Now, when I move the SA switch into the middle position, you can see that I am at 100%, and that is my idle up. And if I move it again, it doesn't really change the throttle at all. It's still sending 100% throttle on the throttle channel, but channel 9 does change. So if we look at channel 9 on the monitor again, remember channel 9 goes through that change. Every time I move the switch, we go from negative 100 to 0 to 100. Okay, so on channel 9, we're selecting a profile, and the profile is what changes the head speed. All right, I will show you that in the configurator in just a few minutes. We're going to get to that. Okay, so that's the mix. That's the mix setup that I have, and I'll show you how this lines up in the configurator in just a minute. And then in terms of outputs, there is nothing fancy there at all. Here is a look at my curve. This is my idle up curve. Let's take a look at that so you can see how I did this. And that's my idle up curve. So when I'm all the way down, we're at negative 100 right here. And then when I go to the mid position right here, we are at 100. And when I go to the up position, we are also at 100. So we're at negative 100, 100, or 100. Okay, that's it. That's it for the curve. That's all you need to do. Very simple. And then I'm not doing anything with global variables. And let's go through some of the logical switches, although I don't really think there's anything, you know what, there's nothing in here required for the RotorFlight. We'll cover these in the after party. And then the last thing I'll show you are my special functions. And I think we'll cover these in the after party as well, because there's nothing really in here specific to RotorFlight. You can see I'm playing tracks idle up, bank 1, 2, 3. I have a sound for my my rescue mode. So SF down, it plays the alarm for rescue. I've got my low voltage sag alert going on there, and my SJ that plays different values. So that's all going to be covered in the after party. There's nothing in my logical switches or my special functions that is specifically required for RotorFlight. So that's why I'm not going to cover all of this stuff. We'll do that in the after party. If you guys want to see the details, I'll show you what I'm doing. Okay, so now let's take a look. We'll go back to the desktop, and we're going to take a look at the configuration on the screen. And let's see here. Under the receiver, all I'm going to show you is that if I move my aileron stick, you can see movement. If I move my pitch stick, you can see movement. If I move my collective pitch stick right here, you see there's movement there. And then if I use yaw, there's movement. And then aux1 is the arming switch. That's SH. So when I flip that, you can see movement on aux1. And then throttle, remember, that's my SA switch. So there's throttle disarmed or off. That's motor off effectively. And then when we go here, we're basically in idle up 1, but you see it's 2012 in the configurator. In the configurator, we're seeing 2012. That's 100%, remember? And then I'm going to flip it up again, and it's still at 100%. So it's 2012, 100%. But notice channel 9 moved again. So that's the difference. See how channel 9 and channel 5 are both being operated by the SA switch. So when it's down, we're both at 988. When I move to the up position, my throttle goes to 100%. My channel 9 on channel 9 only goes to 1500, and then if I push it up again, then it goes to 2012. That's the deal. Okay, let's see. Channel 7. I need to look at my mixer to remember what channel 7 is. Channel 7 is rates. Okay, so if I move my rate switch right here, you can see aux2 is moving, and that's what selects our rates. That tells RotorFlight to change my rate of rotation and my expo, and I can go all the way up. So I have a 3-position switch there. And then channel 8 is rescue, so that is on my SF switch right here. When I click on that, the rescue is activated. All right, so that's channel 8. And then channel 9 we already covered, and that's it. That's it for the channels being broadcast to RotorFlight. That's all there is to it. Okay, the next thing I want to do is show you rates and profiles. So let's get into that now. We'll do that, and I will show you how to set up the rates and profiles in RotorFlight as well. So the first one is rate profile number 3, and right now, that is my rates, remember, are controlled by SB. So if I move SB all the way down, you see we're in rate profile number 1. If I move SB to the mid position, we're in rate profile number 2. And if I move it to the up position, we're in rate profile number 3. Okay, so this is where we're changing our rates. And if you look at these values, here's where the rates are set along with your expo. So instead of doing it in your inputs, you do it on this screen. Okay, so rate profile number 1, I've got and I'm using the actual rates. So these numbers refer to degrees per second. So when you see roll right here at 200, what that means is this aircraft, when I'm on low rates, will roll at 200 degrees per second. If you measure that tumbling that you see, that's about 200 degrees per second. Okay, now if I increase my rates and I go into, say, mid rates, you can see that jumps to 240. And if I go into high rates, I'm still at 240. No, sorry, I'm at 300. I'm using the wrong column. It's the middle column is the max rate. Center sensitivity, that's the center deadband sensitivity. Okay, so max rate, sorry, wrong field, but it's the concept applies. So on low rates, I'm at 200, mid rates, I'm at 240, and high rates, I'm at 300. So you can see when I rotate like that, that's 300 degrees per second. When I put it in the middle position, that is 240 degrees per second. And when I put it in the down position, that is 200 degrees per second. And the expo is here as well. So all I can say about expo, here are my values. I'm using 0.35 on low, I'm using 0.2 on mid, and I'm using 0.25 on high. I haven't tuned my high yet, so I'm just using kind of a default value. I will tune my highs, but I haven't used high yet. I've only used mid and low. So all I can say about expo, very personal subject, tune it to your style, right? Whatever works for you, that's how you want to tune it, okay? So those are the rate profiles. Again, that's controlled by channel 7. We'll go back to the receiver configuration and we'll look at channel 7. See, I'm moving channel 7. That's the yellow one. That's my rate profile. And that's how I adjust my rates and, sorry, wrong screen. That's how I control my rates, which also includes expo. Okay, so that's that part. Now let's talk about the profile, and this is where the SA switch comes into play. And remember, I will show you how to set these in RotorFlight. Don't worry, we'll cover that. So in my profile screen, this is where on RotorFlight we do things like you can control your head speed. So in RotorFlight, I'm going to scroll down and show you my head speed setting. And it is right here. So notice on the down position in rate profile, let me expand this window because this can be, there we go. That's a little better. So I'll hide the Radiomaster logo, and I need the camera up because you guys need to see the camera, but we'll be able to see what we need to see here. So you can see the head speed right there at 1000 with the SA switch in the down position. But it doesn't matter because this is effectively off. When the SA switch is all the way down, remember you have to have that power, that throttle below 990 setting. So this is what that means. So in profile number 1, my head speed, it's immaterial. It doesn't matter because the throttle is basically, the motor is disarmed. It's cut off. Okay, don't confuse that with ELRS arming. That's a different situation altogether. So ELRS arming is a different issue. Okay. All right, so that's rate profile number 1. Now, when I do my idle up, this is what I call idle up, and I assigned a soundtrack to this. So when I do idle up, I move into position number 2. It says, hey, you changed something. I'm going to ignore that. Notice how we switch to profile number 2. You can change your PIDs in here. You can change whether or not you're using pyro compensation. You can change your ground to air decay. But more importantly, notice my head speed down here at 2200. That's my governor. And that is commanded via D-Shot. When I set this up and did the first video, the RotorFlight video, I explained that we're using D-Shot as the ESC telemetry protocol. This is why. So RotorFlight acts as the governor, and it says, hey, over D-Shot, it tells the ESC, I need you to operate at 2200. And that's what it does. Okay. And then the last profile number 3, that's my second idle up. So this is motor off. That's idle up 1. There's idle up 2. And in idle up 2, you can see we went to profile number 3. And when I scroll down, you can see my head speed is set at 2400. Now, the other cool thing about this is you can use these profiles to adjust everything else as well. So I know a lot of people say, hey, wait a minute, that's confusing. It's really not. In Icon, you would attribute this to sport mode, acro mode, and then going into those modes and doing the default configuration. This is the same exact concept. So all we're doing is we're saying, hey, in profile number 2, which is a flight profile, I can turn on Pyro Comp, I can turn on Rescue, I can turn Rescue off if I want to. I can set the air limit for the roll axis. I can set collective to pitch pre-comp or compensation. I can do cyclic cross coupling, or I can turn it off. So the idea is that in each one of these idle ups, you have the ability to have some pretty granular control over the PID loop and the performance characteristics of the helicopter and the fly barless. Okay, that's all controllable right in here in your profile. So profile number 3, that's my idle up 2. I've got a much higher head speed. I'm at 2400. In this case, I definitely want rescue turned on, and there's some other things you can tinker with in here as well. Okay, so that's the profile bit. That's the big one. Now I'm going to show you how to set those. So the first thing we'll do is go into adjustments. And in adjustments, in order to set up rates and profiles, I've got 2 options here. Number 1, this one, enable channel is set to always. The aux channel is my SB switch. So my SB switch is my rate switch. And you can see when I move that, this little red indicator moves across this range. You see that little indicator moving? So I have that set to aux 2, and you can see we've got values from 988 to 1500 to 2011. And I've got 3 steps. Those are the main configurations here. And you use this drop down just to say, hey, that's my rate profile selection. So that's it. That's how you set your EdgeTX configuration to change your rate profile. And remember, rate profile is this guy here. So I can change my rate profile by flipping my SB switch. Okay, so that's the rate profile. That's how you set it in RotorFlight. And then the next one is the idle up. So in the idle up, you can see I did the same thing. The enable channel is always. The aux channel is 4. That's my SA switch, or channel 6. Okay, so that's channel 6 on the radio, aux 4. And when I have the range set at full, so this little slider goes all the way to the end, and the slider goes all the way to the end on this side, and this little red indicator moves when I'm all the way down. It's over on the left. When I'm in the middle position, it's right here in the middle. And when I'm in the up position, it's right here on the right-hand side. And you can also verify the pulse width right here. So 2011, and then 1500, and then 988. And then down here for profile selection, notice I've got this set at 3, and that gives me 3 values. So if you look at the value right here, value 1, value 2, value 3. When you have this working, then you can assign that to do something in RotorFlight. In my case, it's profile selection. So not to be confused with the rate profile, this is my profile selection. That's basically where I have my head speed settings. Okay, so the profile and all the PID loop stuff. All right, so that's it, guys. If you came here wanting to understand how to configure EdgeTX to work with RotorFlight, that's the configuration. That is all you need in RotorFlight to work. That's it. That's all you need. Now, I told you there would be an after party. We're going to get into that next. So these are what I consider non-RotorFlight extras. Okay, so this is just bonus material at this point. You've got everything you need to know about configuring RotorFlight. So let me give you a little bit of bonus material. And the first thing we'll do is head over to my logical switches. And I also want to explain one really quick thing. On my radio, I have the DIY switch right here. See that black button? That's a DIY switch, and it's a momentary switch. And that is connected to SJ, Sierra Juliet, on the radio. So that's SJ on the radio, and that's a momentary switch. All right, that's important because that's part of my add-ons. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you get a good look at the screen, and let's go through this one by one. Logical 1, this is a trick I learned a long time ago. I used it on fixed wing, and this is my it's about to get serious switch. And the reason I say that is because what Logical 1 does is says, hey, when I have telemetry and these two are ANDed together, telemetry and not SA down, which means this is SA down. That's my idle up, remember? So when it's down like this, that's motor off. When it's in the mid position, that's idle up 1. And when it's in the high position, that's idle up 2, okay? So what this means is when I'm not in SA down, that means I'm getting serious because that means I just armed the motor. And it's also ANDed against the SH switch being away. So that means when I'm like this and like that, and I have telemetry, it's about to get serious, because that means I've got a battery connected to the receiver, I've got telemetry, and I just armed it. I armed Express LRS, and I armed the motor. So that means we're in a serious state. It's about to get interesting, logical switch. Save that for later. We'll talk about that again in a little bit. Okay, logical 2. What you see here is this is my voltage sag alarm settings. So all we do here is we compare RxBat against the voltage value of 21.6 while I'm armed. And if that number, if my RxBat drops below 21.6 while I'm armed, then, and that happens for 5 seconds, then I want to know that, okay? That's the sag part. The 5 seconds accounts for sag. So if we're below 21.6 for more than 5 seconds, that means it's probably time to land. The battery is getting down there. And then L03 is one that says, if we're in this state, I really don't care about the battery. So if my RxBat is above 21.6, then that's fine. Then I'm not interested in the voltage, and I don't need any alerts. And then I have an OR switch that says, if either of these are true, if either RxBat is greater than 21.6, or if I'm disarmed, if I've disarmed my radio, then I also don't care. So now I have one last sticky that says L05. This is the buzzer. When L05 is active, we either are L02 or L04. It's like a light switch. A sticky is like a light switch. It's either L02 or L04. So when L02 goes hot, which means my voltage is below 21.6 and I'm armed, and that should be the case now, and that's going to be for more than 5 seconds. So after 5 seconds, this should go on. There it is. That means L05 goes on. So L02 says, hey, when I have voltage less than 21.6 and I'm armed for 5 seconds, then I want you to go on. If I disarm, meaning SH down, or my voltage is above 21.6, then that is L04, and you notice that turns off L05. Okay? So L02 and L04, that's my low voltage alarm, and I'll show you L05 in a minute. So far, the operating logic switches are L01 and L05. Okay? That's all done just for voltage. That's a voltage alert with sag on my radio. All right, I also want to show you my SJ switch and how I operate that. I've got a configuration for SJ, that's the momentary switch in the back, where if I hold it for anywhere from 0 to a half a second, I get an activation on L10. If I hold it for at 1 second to 1.9 second, I get an activation for L11. And if I hold it for 2 to 3 seconds, I get an activation for L12. All right, so I'm going to just press the button once. There's L10. I'm going to hold it twice. There's L11, and now I'll do it 3 times. I'm just holding it, not pressing it, just holding it. And there's L12. Okay, so that gives me 3 different things out of one momentary switch. All right, that's it for my logical switches. The next thing we'll show are my special functions. My special functions, because I have my helicopter, this is a fixed wing radio. Remember, it's running Express LRS. So this is what I normally fly fixed wing. And for that reason, I'm not using my typical global functions. I've asked the EdgeTX developers to consider global profiles based on a global functions based on a profile, i.e. global functions based on a fixed wing profile and global functions based on a heli profile. And I haven't got them to buy off on that one yet. I'm still working on it. I'm hoping to talk them into it. But anyway, because this is helicopter, I don't want it saying high rates, low rates, mid rates. In a helicopter, we use bank. So anyway, for that and other reasons, instant trim is another example. I put instant trim in my global functions. I don't want that on a RotorFlight. So I turn off global functions on this setup, and that means that I have to put certain radio operating parameters in the setup. So SF1 is nothing more than a backlight, which means I can control my backlight with my left slider. So that's why it's going up and down like that. Remember L01, it's about to get serious. That's the about to get serious logical switch. Remember that one? That's this one. Telemetry, the motor's armed and the Express LRS is armed. That's the L01. When that happens, I set my volume to maximum. That's a really cool trick, especially flying helicopters. And I did that because of Fred. Fred was out flying one time and he said, hey, if I turn my volume down and I don't turn it up when I get ready to fly, sometimes I don't hear my prompts, like my timer. And I said, well, that's easy. We'll just set your volume to max when you're in serious business mode. So that's what that one's about. And then SH is just nothing more than my Express LRS arming switch. So that's this one. So when I move SH up, that says we're armed. And if I move it down, it says we're disarmed. That's all it does. And then the last one, the last like global functional one is my volume. I put that on S01 right here. So if I back out of the screen and go back to the main screen, if you look at the volume indicator right there, I can turn that up and down with S01. So that's what's going on with S01, okay? All right, so let's see. I'll show you the flight counter widget setup too if you guys want to see that. We'll do that too. Okay, so that's it for my kind of like my global operational parameters. Now we'll look at the RotorFlight specific or my helicopter specific prompts. So I have SA down. It actually plays a track that says motor disarmed. Motor off. See, motor off. By the way, that audio prompt is in the zip file. So I have motor off for you in the zip file. That's idle up 0. Idle up 1, idle up 2. That's all that's doing is playing those audio tracks. And notice that does not play during startup. Okay, that's all that means. And then banks, instead of high rates, mid rates, and low rates. In helicopters, we say bank. And remember, bank, this is related to the profile. So when I switch my profile from low to mid to high, that's what that is. So I have bank 1, bank 2, bank 3, also not played during startup. And that's all that switch does. SB up, SB mid, SB down. Remember on SF, that is my rescue mode. So if I pull the SF switch down, that activates my siren. So beep, 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 beep. L05, that's my low voltage sag. Remember, if we go back to the logical screen, L05, that's the one I'm concerned with. When that goes hot, that means it's time to land. The battery is done. It wants to land. So when L05 goes active right here, that plays sound alarm clock. And I actually had that disabled while I was doing some tinkering. I need to turn that back on. So if you grab the EdgeTX config that's already in Discord, make sure you turn that one back on if you want to use it. Okay, now we're doing SJ. That's the momentary switch on the back. And what you see here is when I hold that button, for every second I hold it, it beeps. And that's how I know when to let go. So if I press it once, it beeps, and then L10 plays my battery. If I hold it for 2 seconds, it beeps twice, and then it plays L11. And then if I hold it for 3 seconds, that beeps 3 times and plays L12. Okay, so that's how I utilize the SJ switch. I get the beep. It's played every second that I hold the switch, and when I hear 3 beeps, I just let go, and it plays L12. If I hear 2 beeps, I let go, it plays L11. Hear 1 beep, I let go, it plays L10. And you can see on L10, I've got RX-BAT. On L11, I've got my flight timer. That lets me know how long I've been in the air. And then L12 is my T-Power for Express LRS. Okay, the next one, I want to show you the telemetry bit. And there's a telemetry reuse command that we use. And I didn't show you that in the configuration. I got to bring Safari up real quick. Let's see. I want to bring Safari up and show this to you guys because this is important. Let's see. I want to show you guys this one, the telemetry reuse. So on telemetry reuse, there's a command in here. The issue is that CRSF as a protocol does not have a sensor for RPM. So if you want head speed on your radio, the one that Rob advised is to use altitude. So you can put this command, set CRS GPS altitude reuse equals, and then you set that to head speed. So when you go back into RotorFlight, I need to copy that command. We're going to do this. We're going to do equals. I'll hit copy, and then I'll go down here and we'll go into the CLI, and we just paste that value in. So set CRSF GPS altitude reuse equals head speed. And what that does is that sends your head speed via a sensor that is supported by CRSF. So in this case, I have the altitude sensor set to head speed. Okay, then what you need to do is you have to go into your telemetry options on this screen. Let's see here. Delete all. Hold on, guys. Sorry, I need to discover. There it is. Stop. So we should see. Well, I'm not sure why I'm not seeing it. I'm not sure why I'm not seeing it. I'd have to dig into it, but when it's set up right, what's going to happen is you're going to see you'll see altitude. You'll see the altitude sensor come in, and when you see that, you just go into that sensor, you hit edit, and you'll set that. You just change that verbiage to RPM. So that's all you have to do. And once you've done that, now you'll have an RPM sensor that you can use in your configuration. I'm not sure why it's doing it. I don't want to troubleshoot it live. I'll worry about that later. But that's the idea. You set that sensor, you discover new sensors, and it probably has to do with the fact that I don't have a battery plugged in or it's not armed. I'm not sure exactly what's going on. I'll figure that later. But I can tell you that that's exactly what I did on my raw, and it works on my raw configuration. So that's the sensor reuse bit. And let's see. Unfortunately, I really don't know why it's not showing it to me. It really should show it to me, but for some reason it's not. Maybe I'll do a quick little reboot. We'll see what happens. I'm going to do a reboot. Maybe that's all I got to do. We'll reboot it, let it connect, and I'll go back in and discover sensors again. Yeah, that's all it needed. So there you go. And I'm not seeing altitude in there. That's what I expect to see is altitude. And so I'm not sure. Maybe one of the guys that's a little more familiar can mention what's going on or what I missed in the comments. But I can tell you on my raw configuration, I actually use flight mode, and I do see flight mode there. So you could do that as well. You can use, for the sensor flight mode, you can put RPM in as well. That's actually what I did in my production config. So it's right there, flight mode. That's what I did on my production setup. I didn't use altitude. I'm not sure why altitude is not showing. I do see pitch, roll, and yaw. So I am getting stuff that I do expect to see. I'm not sure why altitude's not there. But anyway, there you go. That's the idea on telemetry reuse. And I would encourage you guys maybe think about using the FM instead. That works as well. Okay, so let's go back to the overhead camera. And I think, let's see. Other than we covered the special functions and I covered the telemetry reuse bit. So that's that. So yeah, again, I'm not sure why it's not showing me altitude. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm going to try deleting them one more time. It's just kind of annoying me that it's not showing me. Delete all, yes. So I've got pitch, roll, and yaw. That's what I would expect there. And then I've got RQI. Maybe it's something to do with my RotorFlight setup. I said I wasn't going to. Yeah, I got barometer enabled, so that's not it. I've got barometer right there. That's enabled. So I would expect that to work. Well, I'll tell you what. We can do. Let's see. I'm going to go back and we'll bring up this guy. And let's see if we get flight mode in here. Sats, ground speed, roll flight mode. There we go. That's the one I used initially.
Sensor lost. Sensor lost.
We're going to use that one. So this is what I used in the configuration that is on the Discord. So flight mode reuse head speed, and then we'll save that, and that'll reboot it. And I'll go in here and delete. I'm going to delete everything. I don't know why it didn't do altitude. I'm sure someone will know. Okay, so there's the telemetry sensors discovered again. And there's flight mode right there. So flight mode, now if I edit that and type RPM, that will work. There we go. So now we definitely have it working. Now you've seen it work. Kind of bothers me in live. Sometimes I can't figure that out, what's going on. I have to dig into it a little bit. But there you go. That showed up as flight mode. And now when I run, I'll have RPM as the sensor. So there you go. That's actually what I have in the Discord configuration. Okay, that wraps up my EdgeTX configuration video for RotorFlight. I hope you guys liked it. I hope you found it valuable. And I'm gonna go over to the overhead again, and I want to bring up the rules one more time, just so everyone has a fair shot and understands what the rules are for the giveaway. Remember, you got to send an email to John at RC Video Reviews with "Give me the Nexus" in the subject. I will pick 3 random winners by after midnight of June 5, 2024. I'll notify you or reply to your email that you have won. You will send me your name, address, and phone number at that time, not before, and you have to do it within 24 hours. If you don't do it within 24 hours, you forfeit your prize, and I will pick another winner. Number 4 will be shipped by Radiomaster. You are responsible for VAT, taxes, import duties. Radiomaster will cover the shipping, and it's not available in Russia, Ukraine, or Turkey. I hope you like my video. Sorry about the stumble on the altitude sensor. Not sure what's going on. I'll look into it and see what I can figure out. But the point of the matter is, you guys now understand that you can actually use different sensors. You can use different sensors for different things, right? So that's the main thing to take away from it, is that you can use any of these sensors for any of these values. So you can basically remap something that is supported to something that you want to use. Okay, that's the main rule in what's going on here. So again, sorry for the stumble on altitude. I should have stuck with what worked, but there we go. And we've got RPM. All right, thanks to Radiomaster for sponsoring this video. I hope you like the content. If you do, subscribe and hit the bell so you know when new videos hit the channel. That's all I've got for today. Take it easy.